Halito, and welcome to Native Chalk Talk, a podcast by natives for all. Here we're keeping our Native ancestors' stories and history alive, while also sharing with you our Native culture, traditions, and more. I'm Rachel Youngman, a Choctaw originally from Anadarko, Oklahoma. I hope you'll enjoy this journey with me as we learn from our Native American guests. And I hope you'll do me a favor. Feel free to like and share these episodes. I so appreciate it. Yakuki.
I feel a sense of urgency literally every single day. I'm always encouraging people, hey, record your ancestors, capture as many stories as possible so that we can keep those things alive for generations to come.
See and share our stories at togetherwe'remore.com.
You're listening to part 3 of this series.
So, by the way, the Ojibwe are also known as Chippewa, for those who may or may not know. And it sounds like you even have a preference of being called Ojibwe. Just for us lay people, is there a reason for that preference, or is it interchangeable quite often?
Um, I think it used to be people would say the word Chippewa because that's what was in the treaty. But
Okay.
the idea is that at least the way I've heard explained it was you know they the French would say o Chippewa, o Chippewa, um, and and it really just refers to like the style of moccasin that we have. It has a puckered
Oh,
toe, the seam is
yeah.
puckered. And but we call ourselves Anishinaabe. But Anishinaabe also um refers to like other indigenous people too. So like the Ojibwe, the Potawatomi, and the Odawa, before we migrated west, we were people of the Three Fires, and we lived on the east on the eastern seaboard, right, the East Coast, and then we migrated this way and stopped at different places along the way. But we were uh, and when we uh, when we began that journey, the Potawatomi, they were the fire keepers. The Odawa, they were like the emissaries. Like they would go ahead and tell, other tribal people, we're coming through here. We don't intend to stay, but we're making our way. And
Mm.
uh,
I like that.
and then the Ojibwe, we were the faith keepers. And
Okay.
but yeah, and so that term Chippewa was what was written into the treaties, um, but the but we call ourselves Ojibwe, and um, but the term of who we really are is Anishinaabe, and that
Anishinaabe.
means um, I've heard it described this way that uh, spontaneous man,
Really?
spontaneous person,
Huh.
that we don't believe like we evolved. We believe that we were created, right?
Okay.
Spontaneous, created, and we were placed right here on Turtle Island.
I
We
love it.
didn't come across no Bering Strait.
Right?
And
You
we
were
yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. That is so cool. I like that. Yeah, and for the Choctaw, we were born out of Naniwea, the mound. Well, it's no wonder you've decided to share the idea of healing with others. You've been through so much and you've turned those hard times into helping others, which is obviously admirable. So we talked about your parents, and let's back up again. I'd love to hear about your family's ancestral stories, and I know my listeners are dying to hear those too. So let's start with your dad's side, maybe his parents or grandparents. Both sides though are Ojibwe, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So what?
So my grandfather's name was um John Day. My grandmother was Effie. And my grandmother was the epitome of grace.
Hmm.
She saw a lot of um tragedy, but she never became, she could have so easily been like this bitter woman, but she was not. She was
Wow.
like kind and graceful, and I never heard her say like an unkind word, never once. Um, and my great, you know, when I was in college, this professor asked me like about um, gender roles. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, like when I was growing up, my dad cooked and cleaned when he wasn't out hunting or trapping.
Yeah.
But my mom could chop wood if she had to, um,
They
and
were a
so
team.
we all learned everything, you know.
Yeah.
And my brothers learned how to sew, and you know, my dad would put it to them this way, like if you're out in the woods and you're trapping, and you know, you get a branch or something makes a cut on your wool pants. What are you going to do? Let snow get in there? No, you have to figure out how to sew it back up, you know.
True. Yep.
Um, so we learned everything, but I did notice that um, I worked at the Indian Center when I was really young, and there most of the um, board and the executive director, like they were another tribe.
Mm.
And in our house, everybody talked at dinner time. Everybody sat around the table. Everybody said how their day was. Everybody could say whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I know, like in my friends' houses, like that were white, like it wasn't like that. Like the
Mm.
adults talked and the kids sat and were quiet. Well, with some other tribes, you know, like they don't think women should, um, you know, in some tribes, like a woman would give tobacco to her husband to speak for her or her older brother, and
Right.
that was the way I was raised, you know, like if you had something to say, you know, say it. And so I noticed that, you know, they would sort of, you know, look at me kind of funny, like, you know, I was young, I
Woman,
was,
you shouldn't be
yeah,
talking.
right. Yeah. So, so I went and asked my mom. So I thought, okay, there must be some reason why, you know, I was taught to do all the things my brothers did. And maybe it was because the last hereditary chief at Bois Forte was Charlie Day. Now I have a brother named Charlie Day. So maybe it's because we were born into this leadership role, you know, with this, you know, the ancestor of
Right.
Charlie Day. So I went
Right.
home and I asked my mom, I said, so are we related to Charlie Day, the last hereditary chief? And she looked at me and she laughed and she said, no, Charlie had no sons. And I said, well, but I have a brother named Charlie Day. And she said, yeah. And I said, and you know, dad talked like he was his son. And she said, Charlie Day, the chief, liked your dad. That's true. But he was not his son and you're not related. And I said, well, where do we get that name Day then? We're Day.
Yeah.
And she said, your great grandfather came from Leech Lake Reservation. And
Mm.
he was um, one of the sons of Bug-O-Nay-Ge-Shig. So Ge is day in Ojibwe, right? She
Okay.
said,
Okay.
so um, your great grandfather came from Leech Lake, and his name was he was one of the Bug-O-Nay-Ge-Shig sons. And I'm like, oh my God, that's better yet. You know, Bug-O-Nay-Ge-Shig was like, you know, this like one and two. There was Bug-O-Nay-Ge-Shig one and Bug-O-Nay-Ge-Shig two. And they were like they were like leaders. I mean, like they're in the history
Oh,
books, right?
wow.
So
Really?
so I
Ah,
thought,
I
well,
need to
that's
look them
better
up.
yet. So
Okay.
so anyhow, anyhow that but that ruined that theory that, you know, I was taught these things that my brothers were taught because, you know, we're from some leadership lineage, that at
Right.
least we were not from that leadership lineage. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that's on my dad's side of the family.
We'll be back after this quick break. Are you in the medical field looking for your next opportunity? Listeners, I'm proud to introduce you to Native American veteran-owned staffing company, Worldwide Medical Staffing. Owner and CEO Jackson Weaver is a citizen of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma and is a service-connected disabled veteran where he and his team staff for commercial healthcare and government entities such as the Department of Defense, Department of Energy, and DHS, and specialize in staffing Indian health and VA hospitals nationwide. Isn't it nice to know that our veterans are being cared for by staff who have been handpicked by a veteran who's been in the staffing business for 17 years? Healthcare job seekers, check out these open jobs on www.medical.com. If you're seeking temporary, long-term, or permanent placement of physicians, advanced practice, registered nurses, and more, check out www.medical.com. And Diakoki to our medical professionals and to those who have served our country.
And then on my mom's side of the family, this is interesting. My mother's uh, oh, but back to the Bug-O-Nay-Ge-Shig hole in the day. In 1887 when they did the allotments, and you would go to get your 40 acres or 80 acres,
Yep.
whatever it was, and they asked you what your name was, and you told them, and then they just, changed our names. So hole in the day, Bug-O-Nay-Ge-Shig became Ge-Shig, became Day.
Oh, okay. And,
So
and the names are usually beautiful, the original names, and then they change them to like Smith or
yeah,
something.
yeah. So anyhow, but on my mom's side, her dad, he was the postal carrier, so he carried the mail from Orr, Minnesota to Captogama, which is about 20 miles. And sometimes he walked, and sometimes he had a horse um, and a wagon too. And so my mom came along later, and her brothers and sisters were already teenagers when she was a baby. And but they had a farm. They had cows and horses, and they grew food, and and so yeah, my my dad's family, there were many children, and they really struggled. On my mom's family, there was small, they had the farm, my
Mhm.
grandfather also had a government pension, um
Okay. Yep.
and
Yep.
my mom's parents, their name were Joseph and Mary Roy.
Okay.
My mom was born on Christmas Eve.
Oh, so nice. I love
Yeah,
that. It's kind of special.
yeah.
I love that.
So
Um,
and there so the reservation system has only been in place, right, since like the 1800s. But before that, my mom's like cousins, some of them were like from Thunder Bay, um and up in Canada. And so, the Ojibwe people were actually the largest tribe in North America. Uh,
okay.
when you count like all of us that live in Canada and all of us that live in the United States, we outnumber everybody else.
Really?
But
I would have
because
never
we're
known that.
Yeah, but because
Okay.
we live, and we don't have like a big central government. We live
Yep.
in small bands, and in the clans. And so like your clan, one of the other reasons, like we know, like related to and Bug-O-Nay-Ge-Shig, is like we have the same clan. Um,
Okay.
we're from the Wabashashi, or the Martin clan. So your lineage follows your father's clan.
Okay. Yeah.
But in terms of like um socialization, leadership, um like if eh, um, your clan determines like your responsibility or your role in life. And I'm
Mm,
Wabasheshi, so one of our jobs is to take care of the people. So when we were little, it was like take care of your little brothers and sisters. And as you get older and more, and my dad would say your job is to take care of the family, the clan, the band, the tribe, and then ultimately all of humanity. Whereas
mm,
other clans are responsible for, like the Cranes, they're responsible for leadership. And so, and had I been born into the Crane clan, I would have been taught from the time I was, a toddler how to be a leader. Or the
mm.
Fish clan, they're like the philosophers.
Ah,
They're like the Supreme Court, they settle disagreements between clans and they're the final say. Like the bear, the Makwa, they're responsible for two things like medicine, gathering medicine, but also policing and the village. And they're sort of like
really?
policemen, but they're also the gatherers of medicine. So your clan tells you what your role in life is. And if I would say this,
Yes.
if every child that was born knew their name, their ceremonial name, and their
Hmm.
clan, everybody would be so busy taking care of their responsibilities. There wouldn't be any time for like any mischief, right? You know what
Right.
you
We're
do,
born to do this
right?
for others and for yourselves. It's interesting how a lot of tribes have lost the clan systems, but I love
Yeah,
that you guys still have that. You
yeah,
still have practicing in that way. And it
yeah.
seems like a lot of northern tribes do still have that. I'm from Oklahoma, and so I think a lot of things have been lost in certain cases with some of the tribes, especially the ones that weren't
Well, I think
originating from that area.
the removals had a lot to do with that, right?
For
Um,
sure. For sure.
and I visited the um FAM, that new museum down in Oklahoma. And they can't remember the young woman who was the director. She said, um, we're not a collection museum because, when we were all removed from our homelands, we couldn't carry anything with us, but we have our stories.
Right.
And so that's how everything is set up there, is their
Wow.
stories.
Well, thank you so much for sharing about your clans and your tribe and also about the healing journey that you've been on and the way you're helping others, and not just for individuals, but for the greater community and the earth. And you are the executive director of the Indigenous Peoples Task Force. This is super important, everyone. I want you to hear more about this. So, Sharon, please tell us about the great work you do there.
Yeah, we're a nonprofit organization, and we provide prevention services to youth, to young adults, and we also have a baby food, Indigi baby food, and that's made from um, you know, produce that we grow. So heirloom squash, geti gasami, and we make it into baby food. So once a mother stops feeding her, stops nursing, then the baby would have this baby food, and then also wild rice and blueberries, which is sort of the perfect food. So we do that, and then a large part of our services are targeted to um, harm reduction because this opioid epidemic has really hit
Mm,
the community
right.
hard. So we have everything from syringe exchange, naloxone training, and distribution, navigation, peer-to-peer counseling and navigation, helping people to get into treatment, housing, and so on. We own a 14 unit housing complex that we built in 1998. was originally intended to be for people living with HIV, because they had such a hard time finding housing. But now that, HIV is more of a chronic disease, it's in all of the units are accessible units. It's for people with disabilities. If people go to our website, Indigenous Peoples Task Force, you can see sort of the range of services we have. And we started a new program this last year for young adults, 19 to 24, who are floundering a little bit.
Mhm.
Maybe they're not working or not in school. And we put them through sort of a 3-week work readiness program and then a 1-week peer-to-peer navigation training. And then we send them out into the community. They interview with a agency and they can do a 2-month or 3-month internship with that agency where we pay them 20 for 20 hours a week. And many of those young people, it was just what they needed. And many of them
Right.
were hired by those organizations. We also trained a number of them this summer in compressed earth block making, and they made 9,500 earth blocks that will be used in our new building, which will be going up
Oh,
soon. So, yeah, these young people made $30 an hour making these earth block. And we have a theater program. This is one of our prevention programs. The theater program I began in 1990, and it's one of the longest running Native theaters in the country. And the kids do many performances and all relating to the community and what's happening in the community. And I'm so proud of them. Um, and
yes.
sometimes we have an intergenerational cast. I performed with them at the Kennedy Center 2 years ago in July. So, they if I had some kind of a legacy, these young people, you know, they're um, they're all so special, and some of them are grown up adults now, um, and and one of the young women who was with me for about 5 years, she's in finishing up her second year of college, but her mom was in the program when I first started it, and
Right.
they work in all different areas of the life, but but the theater played a big part in their speaking ability, their um, concentration, their critical thinking, um, and learning the culture.
Mhm.
Kids sing, they can sing many different kind of songs, healing
Oh,
songs, they can sing prayer songs, and they can all introduce themselves, at least they can introduce themselves in the language, in the language of their tribe. And so I think that's
mm.
one of the most important things.
And again, it's about that feeling like you're a part of something. And obviously, the language is part of our sovereignty. So, for them to have that place to belong and also be able to speak their own language has to be empowering, I would think.
Yeah, I think so.
If someone is looking for some of the things that you're talking about and the support that they can get out there, there is a website, everyone. It's called indigenouspeoplestf.org. And I assume you serve the surrounding communities and your own community, correct? Or is this
Yeah.
something that someone can come from another part of the country and get some support?
Well, mostly our surrounding community. And also I want to mention the NIBI website. That's NIBIwalk.org.
Perfect. Well, Sharon, this conversation has really been so moving. Thank you for sharing your time, your stories, and your wisdom with us. And listeners, if you are also on a journey to healing, as many of us are. May you be filled with hope and strength, and please know that you are not alone. And to all of my listeners, if this conversation resonates with you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode. Until next time, Yakuki, and God bless.
Big welcome.
Thanks for listening to Native Chalk Talk. Be sure to join our community on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and check us out at nativechalktalk.com. Stay tuned for the next episode. You're going to love it. Yakuki. Thank you, my friends.